are Geekcentric, and you can be too. Love ya. Get home safe, guys. Peace.
Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our special Behind the Geeks episode for Marvel Studios, Captain America, Brave New World. My name is Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things geek-centric, and all things Captain America, because it is a very special day. We are welcoming some fantastic guests from Marvel Studios' latest film, Captain America, Brave New World. I was fortunate enough to sit down and chat with Julius Onah, the director of Captain America, Brave New World, as well as the man himself, Giancarlo Esposito, who is in this film as one of the antagonists, who goes by the name of Seth Voelker, aka Sidewinder, as part of the Serpent Society. I am so grateful for the time that I had with these two gentlemen. It wouldn't be possible without our friends from Marvel Studios Canada, and by extension, Disney Studios Canada. They're always setting us up with great interviews, and we are so grateful and humbled to be having the opportunity to chat with whomever is behind the things that we love. In my interview with Julius, he shares more about the creative decisions behind balancing the grounded storytelling of the past Captain America films with the larger-than-life MCU elements. And Giancarlo Esposito shares more about what drew him to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how his approach to playing a villain like Seth Voelker, aka Sidewinder, is much different from past villainous roles that he's played. These are really fun interviews. I'm very grateful for the time that I had with both Julius and Giancarlo. But before we get to those interviews, I just want to remind you that we will have our spoiler-free review for Marvel Studios' Captain America, Brave New World out tomorrow for you to enjoy. And if you want to enjoy these interviews that you're listening to right now, you want to watch them online, well, guess what? You can do that right at our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric. And if you want to write into us and let us know your thoughts on these interviews and what we're doing here at Geekcentric, please feel free to reach out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on our socials. You can find us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT, on Instagram and TikTok at wearegeekcentric. All right, that's enough. Let's get to these interviews. First up is my interview with the one and only Giancarlo Esposito. Enjoy. Hello, Giancarlo. How are you, my friend?
I'm well, Justin. It's good to see you. Well, you are a geek. You got that shield on your chest in the right place, baby.
Oh yeah, sir. This has been a long time coming. Fans have envisioned you in the MCU for years. Roles like Doctor Doom, Professor X. What made this the right time and character for you to step into the MCU?
Well, for me, in my brain, Marvel makes great movies, and I like the company. I like how they do it. I like the way they write it, the way they execute it. So this was first on the list. And so I've been biding my time to be in a Marvel movie with this particular team that does it so well. And they've done it over and over and over again. And I must say that each time it gets more refined and more grounded and more rooted and better. And so to me, this is a dream come true, to be in this particular franchise with people who really, are mindful and take care at making a great film. And I think this is one of the reasons why we're coming out now, which I think is a perfect time for this film to come out. And it is really great entertainment.
Yeah. Seen 40 minutes of footage, I think, roughly. And I was definitely very much feeling those espionage vibes. And like you said, there's the intrigue is there. That intrigue that you know and love from the MCU is definitely there. But, this is another villain for you. From Gus from Breaking Bad to, Moff Gideon from The Mandalorian and Stan Edgar from The Boys. Like, each of these characters feel like they're explorations of power and control. Has playing these roles influenced your perspective on leadership?
Yeah, well, for me, each time I'm playing someone who has nefarious intentions or maybe a villain, I either play against it. As in many of the villains I play, I have a thought that maybe they're doing something for the greater good of the world. Moff Gideon in Mandalorian, Gus Fring thought he could do it better, had a better formula. maybe that would harm less people and be much more efficient. So I try to find the building block of what the opposition of thought may be. With Sidewinder, I often have to think about who are you going to follow into a war? Are you going to follow a guy who really knows what he's doing and knows the intel of what's happening? Of course, Moff Gideon did a little bit. You know, he knew everything about everything and no one knew why. But you're going to want to follow someone who's skilled and who's adept at being in that theater of war. And I believe Sidewinder is that man. For me, he has a certain power. I also think and know that in our world today, people want to be told what to do. Now, you'd think that they want to exercise their voice of freedom, but many times, sometimes for human beings, it's easier just to be told if you trust who's telling you. Right. So to me, Sidewinder has the ability to be in hopefully, you know, we hope more movies to come of Marvel. He would have the ability to be someone who is a shapeshifter in a certain way to allow you to know that you can trust him. Mm-hmm. And allow you to know that he's someone who can lead you. So this villain is very different for me, part and parcel of the fact that he's very physical. And these other guys are held their brains. Now, if you know the history of Seth Voelker, where he came from in the comic, he is someone who was an economics professor who then came into this world. So that's someone who's extremely smart. Mm-hmm. and knows about economics and money. Whether he's out for himself, we don't know. Whether he's out for someone else, we will find out. And so to me, this becomes a character that has a little bit more complication than some of the characters I played before, but it's equal to some of the real heavyweights that I played, just with a physical element to it, because he can do it all for himself.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask my next question, you know, in regards to that physicality. Like, you joined the film when there were some changes that were going on with the production. So stepping into that role and having to deal with that physicality and embracing that, how did that shape your performance of kind of hitting the ground running?
Well, you know, I'm really blessed to know that, you know, my job as an actor is to use not only my tongue and my face and my, you know, image, but it's to use my body. So, you know, I do seminars in acting. I teach from time to time, and acting is a physical experience, and it's visceral if you allow yourself to feel it. So luckily I was in good shape, and I went down and got with the program, as I've done stunt work and other films that I've done before. And I knew that it was going to be not only a mental exercise, but also to combine that mental exercise with a physical exercise of actually making the moves and making them right and having it look right, was very important for me. And so it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've done it in little increments in different films, you know, but I've never done it on this level. And to me, this is an element of not only me, but the character that people have never seen me do. And I think they're going to be very excited about it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Well, that's my time, Giancarlo. I very much appreciate you joining us on the Geekcentric podcast. And just a quick note, we here at Geekcentric, we're fortunate enough to see you talk here in Toronto at Fan Expo Canada and on a Sunday morning. And we've always talked about how we felt like we were in the house of Giancarlo, because you were taking us to church that day with just your inspiration. So just thank you so much for making the time to always connect with fans and just share your insight about how you bring these characters to life. It
is absolutely my pleasure. I'm in Toronto now doing The Boys, so we're in the same city. I do remember that expo, and most of them that I do, I take the opportunity to share who I really am in those positions and what I really believe, and answer all the fan questions. So that's something that's in my wheelhouse, and you were there. I love to do it. I'll continue.
You do. Yeah. Awesome. Have a good one, sir.
Peace.
Bye. Next up is my interview with the director of Marvel Studios' Captain America: Brave New World, Julius Onah. Hi, Julius. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Really nice to meet you, Justin.
It's very nice to meet you. Thank you for making the time to join us on the Geekcentric podcast. Look, Captain America, the films have always been my favorite. You know, the first one's very much a period piece, but it's the other two that feel very grounded. And I feel like they're excellent examples of mixing genres. You know, you got that espionage vibe, that spy thriller vibe for Winter Soldier and Civil War. You know, this film is introducing some fantastical elements. How do you keep that grounded grit that is so familiar to the Captain America franchise while also bringing in these larger than life MCU elements?
That's a great question. And, it's twofold. First, you start with the characters and you want to make sure that their emotional journeys are relatable, that they feel authentic, that they feel plausible, and that you can track them over the course of the film. And there's some questions that this movie asks about empathy. There's questions that this movie asks about seeing the good in each other. And that is something that, because this Captain America Sam Wilson's superpower is his empathy, becomes really fun to explore in a genre like a paranoid political thriller that's all about mistrust of individuals, mistrust of institutions. Now he's got to challenge himself and challenge his empathy across a Thaddeus Ross who once imprisoned him but is now president of the United States, who once divided the Avengers that he was a part of with the Sokovia Accords. So you have this rich, authentic, emotional and psychological terrain to play with. That's part of how you ground it. The other part of how you ground it is the filmmaking. And that was something that, I'm so grateful to Marvel for, in allowing me to look at different types of paranoid, psychological, political thrillers as inspiration for this film. So we started off with conversations about The Day of the Jackal, but then we talked about movies like Point Blank. There's a great Fassbender miniseries, World on a Wire. Somewhat surprisingly, there were a couple contemporary movies that I also looked at, The Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Great Beauty. Not that those were specifically paranoid thrillers, but they have elements in the way they use their visual language that has a great deal of mystery and tension to them and surprise as well. So I wanted to pluck from all these different places. And it's not that it was a one-to-one with those films. It was just about the accumulation of details in this film that could then create that sense of cinematic tension, yet also authenticity, and lean into the genre in a way that felt fresh and specific to Sam Wilson. So it was those two approaches that I really, really focused on, and then wanted to make sure that they translated across the film. So the last part of that is also that I wanted to shoot the film in a way that stayed consistent. And I said this at the very beginning to everybody at Marvel, that whether it's a visual effects sequence, it had to be driven by the cinematic choices that I was making. So I made sure our digital cameras and our digital lenses were consistent. The way I used the camera was consistent as I was devising previs, working with our previs artists. I made sure that, I wanted a very controlled camera, no use of handheld. So as we started to make stunt viz, that was all stuff that I worked with our stunt and our fight coordinators on. So across the board, everybody embraced the vision that I had and stayed very disciplined to make sure it was a cohesive whole, so that when you get to Tiamat, when you get to Red Hulk, all those things still feel part of the movie that we've been telling from the beginning.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I can tell that there's such a love and passion and care just in how you're talking about it, that you wanted to ensure that those elements were in place to still keep it really, connected. Now, I had an opportunity to talk to Giancarlo Esposito as well today, and I was asking him this question. He joined the film obviously during a time when the production was going through some changes, and joining it in a way to kind of be a whole new character. For yourself, kind of asking something similar, what was it like working on something that was evolving in the moment, and how did Giancarlo's addition kind of influence your final vision for this film?
Giancarlo is somebody I've been a massive fan of for a huge time. He's made some pretty seminal films early in his career with Spike Lee. Spike Lee started my career by executive producing my first feature, so it's been a dream come true to work with him. And look, any film that you're making is a process of, experimentation and iteration, even when you have planned and prepared, because you want to keep room for discovery. If we're not getting surprised as storytellers, you're not getting surprised as the audience. Serpent Society was always a part of the film, and that never changed. But how we were going to translate them from characters in publishing who dress up as snakes with, snake-like appendages to characters that work in a grounded, as you said, paranoid political thriller that can also honor the tradition of Cap movies, where you're always going to find different strategies and approaches work, some better than others. And as we evolved Serpent Society in the film, it became clear that having an actor with the gravitas of somebody like a Giancarlo Esposito would be so integral to making them feel real, so we stay consistent in the tone of the movie we wanted to create and the story we wanted to tell. So that really was the process. But the actual story itself, that was something that has always stayed intact. It was just, how are we going about realizing it? And Giancarlo, came in a way that really helped us cement Serpent Society. And I think audiences, are going to be really excited to see where they go in the MCU going forward.
No, I'm very excited. I'm excited to see his character. We were joking about, being another villain, but he obviously he brings such heart to every villain he's played, where it kind of gives you a sense of understanding. Julius, thank you so much for taking the time to join us again on the Geekcentric podcast. It really means a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the movie when it
Thank you
comes
so
out.
much, sir. Take care.
Have a good one.